Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NABHOOD's 28th Annual International African American Hotel Ownership and Investment Summit and Trade Show. We're so excited to have you here for day one. Who's excited to be in Miami? We're presenting the 6th Annual Thomas J. Baltimore Jr. Distinguished Speaker Series, which is a NABHOOD endowed session for Florida International University, Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, and Florida Memorial University, an HBCU institution. For today, Dr. Andy Ingraham, President and CEO of NABHOOD, will sit down with Leslie Hale, President and CEO of RLJ Lodging Trust, for a lively discussion about her early days, her experience in the hospitality industry, her view on diversity and inclusion, philosophies that have guided her throughout her career, and what's next for the hospitality industry. Please welcome Dr. Barron Harvey, Associate Provost of Howard University.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to introduce this next session, and more specifically, introduce an alum of Howard University. Leslie Hale has had a tremendous career, and as a faculty member and administrator at Howard University, I am so proud to be able to introduce her for those of you who do not know her, and introduce her again to those who do. As you all know, Leslie is the president and CEO of RLJ Real Estate Holdings. Not only is she the CEO, but she also serves in a number of other roles as well. And throughout her career, she has had a tremendous impact. As you might know also that she was CFO of RLJ Holdings, as well as becoming COO before she became the Chief Operating Executive Officer in 2008. Her career also spans investment banking and other financial areas as well. Let's give a round of applause for Leslie Hale, a Howard University alumna and a Harvard alumna. Let's welcome her and the Andy Ingraham to the podium. Thank you.
Wow, great introduction, Doc.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Howard in the house. Any other folks from Howard University here? Or y'all failed to go to a good school? I know. Next time. So, Leslie, welcome, first of all, to Miami. Hot, muggy. A lot of folks from New York say, I hate coming to Miami because it's just so hot. We love Miami. But I got my first question. How did the young lady from Compton, and we heard Boys in the Hood, get to be on the stage today? How does this happen?
Well, first of all, let me just say good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. And let me also acknowledge Dean Harvey. Now, you may not remember me, but I actually took your 8 a.m. accounting class when I was at Howard University. So thank you very much. So I know you're Associate Provost, but for me, you will always be Dean Harvey. And so thank you for having me. Look, I think that's a long journey and story, Andy. But I think that on the foundation and we can dig into any of these pieces, is that first and foremost, I had an amazing set of parents. My parents were entrepreneurs, and so really taught me a very strong work ethic. I had the privilege and the honor of attending Howard University, which is an organization and a university that nurtured me and helped propel me. And then along the way, I had a lot of mentors and sponsors and people who advocated for me when I didn't even know they were advocating, opened doors that appeared to be closed. And so there's a lot of steps in between that, but I am here today because people invested in me and helped me, navigate some pitfalls, forks in the road, got me out of a few ditches, and I just sort of persevered. So,
When you said persevere, you thrive, realizing that you're the only African-American woman in the United States, and probably the world, Dean, who runs a real estate trust. But more importantly, I'm sure you had mentors along the way. Who would you say are some of the folks that have made a tremendous impact in your life besides your parents?
Yeah.
Ah!
Look at that, yeah, look at that.
Look at Leslie. Is that Howard University?
No, that's Harvard, yeah. But yeah, no, definitely. Look, I would say that if I break up my career into three buckets, right? The early part of my career, middle part of my career, and the latter part of my career. The early part of my career, my mentors were actually all white males. The middle part of my career, they were African-American males, and the latter part of my career, they've been all women. And I tell that story because I think it's important for people to understand that mentors don't have to look like you. They don't have to come from the same place as you, same institution or anything like that. People who are willing to help you, coach you, and open doors for you will look different. Additionally, they will change over time, right? So early part of my career, my white male mentors taught me the technical nature of real estate, the language, the industry, and that was very important because I was in the learning stage of my career. The middle part of my career, where I had African-American males, they really taught me the game, right? They taught me how to navigate the politics. They opened doors for me to get good assignments. And they gave me a shot that I otherwise might not have gotten. And then the latter part of my career, it was really about navigating spaces and places as a woman. You often walk into the room, there aren't that many of us. People who could understand and appreciate what is it like to have children and have to navigate your career. I have four children. And so they've evolved over time. But when I was at General Electric, Art Harper was instrumental in my life. Alan Braxton, who was my mentor for Twiga, was important. And of course, Tom Baltimore and Bob Johnson were very instrumental in terms of where I've been today, and have given me great advice over the years. People often say, well, how do you get mentors? And for me, there was always sort of two ingredients. One was you do good work, right? Do good work, produce things, and people will gravitate towards you. One. And two is being a good listener. The number of times that people give advice and that people don't follow. For me, people would give advice. Not only did I follow the advice, but I sent an email to whoever gave me the advice and told them I did it. And here was the outcome of what you asked me to do. And what I found,
makes sense.
And what I found is that people invest in people who are listening, because they recognize that, hey, I told you to do X, you did it, so I'm going to put more into you and more into you. I can't tell you the number of people that I meet, and I'll say, hey, give me a call, and then they never call, right? And the people who do call, they get through, will be surprised at how quick I follow up. And so I think that you have to be, in what you get out of it, what you put into it. But I would say that, that was definitely a key ingredient for me, Andy.
Les, you said advice and follow through, but probably about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think I called you one Saturday, you were at work, and I said, why are you at work on a Saturday? You're the CFO. You remember what you told me?
I do not. What did I say?
You said the president of the company, Tom Baltimore, is working. You saw him working on Saturday, so you followed his lead. Why was that so important? Tom went to work on Saturday. I mean, if he wants to go to work on Saturday, it's fine. Why don't I just stay home? I'm going to get the same paycheck.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. Why?
I didn't do that. Look, I think that one of the ingredients to my success has always been my work ethic. I have never been the smartest person in the room. I have never been the sharpest pencil, but very few people can outwork me. Tom is one of those people, but not many. And so I've always worked, Andy, 6 days a week, 5 days for the company, 1 day for myself. Always 1 day for myself. And so I would typically work on a Saturday, but Tom Baltimore worked on Sunday, so I switched to Sunday, so I could do that. But the reason why I did that is because I would spend 15 minutes with Tom on a Sunday, uninterrupted, and in that 15 minutes, I learned more in that 15 minutes than I might have learned all week. And so the ability to understand what he was doing, why he was doing it, what he was thinking about, what was coming next. I learned to think strategically. I learned to understand what direction he was taking the company. My objective, when I worked for Tom, and I make it no secrets, is that, I wanted to be his first call, his last call, and his only call if he needed something done. And I put myself in a position to be successful to that. There's a young man in this audience today who did that for me, Elliot Estes. He was my road dog on Sundays, as well. And so I think that when you find somebody who's doing what you want to do, you got to pick a horse, and I picked my horse being Tom, and met him where it was easy for me to kind of get in the lane of information flow. But I've always tried to be, thoughtful and strategic. I think for me, there were two guideposts to my career. One was work ethic, and producing good work, because you can't do anything unless you do that. And then the second thing that was a guidepost was always putting yourself in spaces and places where you could be not successful, but extraordinarily successful. And RLJ represented that for me from a standpoint that it was an organization that I can not just bring myself, but bring my whole self to the organization. It was an organization that is a meritocracy that you won't experience in most spaces and places, where you're judged on outcomes. And so to have the ability to sit with somebody who's very cerebral and pick his brain, I was willing to put in the work ethic, the work and time and sacrifice to do that, and it's paid off in spades.
So, Leslie, how many hotels do you have today?
We got 97 hotels, Andy.
That's a lot of hotels. Where do you see the market going? You think, because you're buying and you're selling, I know a couple of guys here, Evans Charles, I think he's around, wanted to buy some of your assets. I think he did. Didn't he buy one of your assets?
He's looked at some of our assets, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Where do you see the market going?
Look, I think that for the last 10 years or so, we've all been punch drunk on low interest rates. And you could financially engineer returns. If you got an asset that's yielding, 8 to 6%, and you got interest rates at 4%, you can make money off the spread. We're moving to an environment where you actually have to learn how to create value. And that is where RLJ has made most of its value, is being able to identify an asset and buy right, think of a business plan for that asset, and then execute on that business plan. It's no longer going to be about, buying an asset and taking the spread between interest rates and all that thing. You actually have to grow the cash flows. You actually have to be able to figure out a business plan for an asset and take it from, position A to position Z in order to create value. And I think that's where we're heading. And by the way, lots of people made money when interest rates were at 5-6%. in historical time frames. And so it's been done before, but I think that's where we're headed. I think the business model in hospitality is going to be challenged over the next several years, given the margin pressure that we're experiencing from different avenues, particularly the labor side of the equation. So you have to have the ability to grow the cash flows vis-a-vis the top line in your business strategy. And so this is a capital-intensive industry. And so as you think about investing on a go-forward basis, you have to think about how am I going to take the asset to a next level. It can't just be buying a stabilized asset in this environment.
We talked about Tom Baltimore. For those who don't know, Tom was one of the founders of RLJ. Tom runs now the second largest hotel company in the U.S., Park. So that means in a couple of years, you're going to run the #1 hotel in the U.S. You may buy a big brand. But how important is education and being ready? You mentioned great mentoring. I know you went to Harvard University. In a couple of years, we got the dean into the hotel business a couple of years ago, right? Great brand. How important is education, preparation? Mentoring is important. What about preparation and education?
I think you always have to be prepared to catch the ball, right? You always have to assume the ball's coming to you and be prepared in terms of whatever the opportunity set is. And so, education is important, but I also think it's about the experience that education can provide and the doors that it can open. I think in this crowd, I think they understand that education is important, but for me, people don't ask you, what did you learn? No offense, Dean Harvey, but what did you learn in classroom X or Y? What it is about is a network that you're creating in these spaces and places. And so I think about my ability to call my friends from Howard or my friends from Harvard or whatever institution that I worked at. That is really sort of the lasting piece on when I think about institutions and education. Education is a baseline, but I think it's what you do with that, that is the follow-on point, from that perspective. I think you always have to be prepared. Oftentimes, when opportunities have come my way, I didn't even know that somebody was looking or thinking about me for an opportunity. When I joined the board of Macy's, to this day, I have no idea who recommended my name. But what I do know is that when I go into the boardroom and any venue that I'm in, I'm always prepared. And so when people see that you're always prepared, that you're thoughtful, that you are engaged, they'll think about you when opportunities come about. I sit on the board of Howard University, and I've gained a lot from that experience. But when I come in, I'm all business. I take it very serious. And so I think preparation is just part of my DNA. Education is a foundation, but it's what you do with all of those things that I think are most important, Andy.
You said preparation, foundation. You use a lot of different statements to really affirm if it's success. Do you think yourself as being successful at this point? I mean, Compton to this stage, Macy, Howard. And you said you have to be smart, but you started in the financial background. And you went to Harvard, Harvard, okay, so it's school. I mean, I couldn't even get above a 1.2 GPA. Was you had a 4-point GPA?
Yeah. Yeah.
So connectivity. I'm still trying to learn to get my GPA up, but nobody's counting that. So what do you think? Are you successful, you think, in your mind? And where do you want to go? What's the goals? I mean, you're looking at a lot of aspiring hotels. Elliott, and it's interesting you mentioned Elliott. I came downstairs panicking, looking for you, and I said, Elliott, you see Leslie? He said, no, I got under control. He said, I'm staffing her today. And Elliott used to work for RLJ, and you see the sort of relationship. What is success? What is opportunity? If I was a hotelier starting out, what would I look to do?
It's a lot packed in that question, Andy.
That's okay. We got time.
Yeah, we got time. So look, I think that success should be individually defined in terms of that. You don't have to be in the same role or opportunity set that I have in order to define yourself successful. People often ask me, that you're a CEO, you've done these things. What's the biggest accomplishment you have? And the biggest accomplishment for me was actually graduating from Howard University.
Is that the photo we have with her graduating? Can I see that picture?
But and I'm not just saying that because Dean Harvey's here. I'm saying it because that is Howard University.
So that's Howard University.
Howard University. So, I'm saying that because for me, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, right? Why
weren't you a casualty? South Central LA, the hood.
Yeah. So what I was about to say was that, statistically speaking, growing up in the in the 80s, I theoretically shouldn't have made it out, right? I had every opportunity to become a statistic. Everything was surrounded, whether it was teenage pregnancy, high school dropout, gang violence, drug. It was all there, right? You all watched Boys in the Hood, but I lived that, right? And so for me, I love being from California, but I was trying to get out by any means necessary. And so education took me out, of that and took me to Howard University. And so I wasn't a great student by any stretch of the imagination, but that's the beautiful thing about Howard is that, it finds you, it polishes you, and then it propels you forward. And so for me, that has always been the greatest accomplishment because without Howard, I wouldn't be here today. There wouldn't have been a Harvard, there wouldn't have been a GE, wouldn't have been all those other stuff. And so for me, a kid from South Central Los Angeles, little skinny kid, I wasn't supposed to be here today. And so that will always be, the greatest accomplishment. But why I push forward many times that I could have quit, because I always say that if you're given an opportunity, then I've got to push forward so that I can open the doors for other people who've come, behind me. And so, that, is kind of where I'm at. It's sort of, if you think about one's career, you got to learn, earn, and return, right? And so I spent an incredible amount of time learning and putting a foundation together. I've had the opportunity to earn, and now I'm in the space of returning, as a result of that, and hopefully kind of give full cycle. But for me, Andy, the accomplishment isn't, RLJ. It isn't going to be Goldman. It's not HPS. It's not HPS. It's Howard, and that's why I serve tremendously. Today on the board, it's a labor of love, because there's a lot of kids that are out there like me, who, if given the opportunity, can succeed, but you got to get the opportunity, and I think that's how I kind of think about it.
Great, thank you. So we have about 30, 35 kids here from various HBCU schools around the country, and Cornell and NYU, hospitality schools, and of course Howard University. I think we've got one student here, Dean. What advice would you give them first? And then secondly, what advice would you give to people starting into the business, particularly African Americans?
Yeah. Look, I think on the student side, I would say that, the first part of your career should really be that learning component that I sort of talked about. There should be 3 things that you're focused on when you're coming out of school. One is you should be focused on building your toolkit, around you. Every industry has a language, whether you're technology, healthcare, or real estate. You got to learn the language and really build out your toolkit. Learn the equity side of the equation, the debt side of the equation, all the things that are around you in a technical sense that you should be focused on that. You should also be focused on building your work ethic around that. Raw intelligence is great, but if you don't put it to work, it doesn't really matter. And the third thing you should be focused on is what I call the 3 C's, right? The first C is about competency. That's the technical side. The second C is around your credibility, which is put out good work. Do what you say you're going to do. Be on time. Basic things. And then third C is your confidence. When you've done the work, when you show up on time, you can have confidence. And so as a young person, you got to really build out your toolkit and focus on those things. And so as you think about your first opportunity and where you're going to go, lots of people want to do the sexy thing. That's really great. But what you should really be focused on is what organization is going to teach me? What organization is going to invest in me? What organization is going to propel me and give me the things that I need? The sexy stuff will come, but if you don't have a foundation in which to grow off of those things, then there are going to be cracks along the way. The best place I ever went out of my career was General Electric, and I learned a lot, saw a lot, and experienced a lot, there. So, for young people, I would say, learn, spend your time, thinking about your career in 2-year increments. Am I learning today? What am I learning this year? What am I focused on? And then the rest of the things will come if you have a strong foundation on that. I think in terms of getting into this business, on the side, I didn't, come into the real estate from an investor's perspective. I came into it from, a corporate jockey, if you will. And you kind of have to figure out where you feel your skill set is going to best be played. What's your network going to lend itself to? Kind of look at your balance sheet. Your balance sheet consists of your education. It consists of, it's not just money, right? Balance sheet consists of kind of your education, your network, your interest, and those things. And so for me, as I sort of think about people coming into the space, you got to find out, hey, am I a build it or am I a fix it kind of person, right? I am not a build it. I could not do development. And God bless all of you who do it. It's a long haul, a lot of no's to kind of get in there. And then, but if everybody could do it, it'd be being done. So you got to figure out if that's your kind of that person. I'm a fix it kind of person. I like to do transactions. I like fast pace and speed. And so I went to a space and place where we were doing deals, along the way. So I would say that as you come into this industry, figure it out if you're a build it or you're a fix it kind of person. Look at your balance sheet in terms of, do you have the type of network that's going to allow you the access that you need in order to kind of, to get whatever you're trying to do off the ground. And then, think about what's the right, kind of entry point for you. Life is an IRR, if you think about it, and all you guys should know what that is because you're looking to invest in hotels, right? And IRR is very simple, right? You have, you either have if you think about the corporate jockey, they kind of said, hey, I'm going to go with cash flows early in the stream and, maybe kind of get a big pop on the back end. An entrepreneur has to kind of think about it, you might have a J curve, coming out and then, kind of get pops, but your pop is going to be bigger because you're in the equity, right? And so you got to kind of figure out what kind of IRR can you sort of withstand, as you sort of think about where you want to invest and how you want to play out your career. But it's got to align with your balance sheet, in the sense of if you've invested in your network, if you've invested in the things that you need to do to be an entrepreneur, that's great. But if you haven't, corporate jockey is not a bad place to go in order to sort of say, hey, I'm gonna, stay in the corporate world and then I'm gonna spin out and then go do the entrepreneurial thing. And so you gotta kind of figure out what is the best way to go, but you gotta be building your balance sheet along the way. I could never have done entrepreneurialism from the beginning, not because I wasn't capable of doing it, because I really knew what it took. My parents were entrepreneurs. Lots of people say they want to be an entrepreneur. Right? My parents worried about the lights being, on. We went and cleaned our buildings. My parents didn't have sanitation workers when they were, in their business. We were the sanitation workers. I've been working since I was 11 years old. I didn't start getting paid until I got out of college, but I've been working since I was 11 years old. And so for me, I knew what entrepreneurial, what it meant to be an entrepreneur, to worry about it every day, 7 days a week, and that just was not me, right? And so I think as you come into a business, as you kind of dig into it, you got to figure out what your entry point is, and do you actually have the intestinal fortitude on that avenue, and then build your balance sheet out in terms of the way that you're doing. Elliot did investment banking. He came to RLJ. He learned the transaction world, and he spun out. now he's doing his own business. And so, and he's got 10 assets or so in terms of what he's invested in. But he built a network, he built a know-how, he got the relationships, he figured out the formula, and then he spun out, and he's doing his thing. There are other people in this room who started off doing kind of onesie-twosies, along the way. That has value, along the way. But I would just sort of figure out, kind of what's going to work for you, and it kind of goes back to what I talked about as sort of my guidepost being. Put yourself in a space and place where you can be not successful, but extraordinarily successful. But part of that is you have to know yourself in terms of what your ingredients are and what that balance sheet looks like. And the network and the relationships and all those things, those matter. Have you invested in that? You can't just wake up one day and say, I want to do hotels. You have to say, hey, I want to do hotels, and what's my path and road, and am I investing and thinking about that, along the way, and nurturing that balance sheet so that when you spin out, you're spinning out at the right opportunity for you to be successful. And again, that's from my lens. I'm not perfect, and I'm sure there are other people who've done it different ways.
That's interesting. That's a lot of stuff. I wonder if they call you a trailblazer. You don't think? Let's see. There's a sign here, the note that says. I can read it. NABHOOD Trailblazer Award. You think she's a trailblazer? When you think about what she said, but what she's done, when you look across the industry and you see the first, and when you see and hear what she's doing, she's paving the way for others. That's a trailblazer. And a friend of yours wanted to say something.
Leslie, congratulations on this award. As an alumni of RLJ Lodging Trust, it's important for you to know that we are always with you. We support you in all of your endeavors. You continue to blaze a trail that very few will ever encounter. Your support of young people, of other organizations that you're passionate about, and your leadership within the industry are second to none. We love you, we're happy for you. We cannot wait to see what God has in store for you next. Continue to make it happen. This is Carl Mayfield, and I love you very much.
When I talk to people that work with you, know you, there's a fondness of, here's a person that's going to help me to the next step. And you talk about what you're doing with young people. What would you tell people that are trying to find their way? Looking for investors, looking for money. You mentioned creating that relationship. And Elliot's a good example. When Elliot left RLJ, I think he left about 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yes, man, it's been a minute.
In a minute. 10. What would you tell other Elliots that it can be done?
Well, first let me say thank you very much for the award. And Carl is a brother from another mother, so I appreciate that. And I got to send him a text and tell him I didn't know. Look, I'm happy to be the first, but I am not proud to be the only. I think that is a tragedy. There are many more people who are way more talented than me and who deserve to have a shot. And I think that we have to be vigilant about making sure that we're opening the doors to give people a shot and an opportunity. There are lots of people in this room. I think there's lots of people in this room, if they were given the shot, could be successful. And I think that when I think about the hospitality industry, it is different than most industries, sectors. If you think about the apartment sector, the office sector, nobody wants to be in an office right now, but retail, whatever it may be, it doesn't have the same setup as hospitality. The hospitality industry, you've got owners, you've got brand companies, you have management companies, which means that you have 3 times as many opportunities to be CEO, CFO in the C-suite, and to run something or provide services in some kind of way because it's an operating business. And so, I think this is an industry where if you look at the population of people who work in the industry, the vast majority of them are minorities and women. So I think that it's a tragedy that we don't have more people in senior spots. I think that oftentimes women and minorities are encouraged to take roles that are important. And let me say this because I know somebody's going to criticize what I'm about to say, but every role within an organization is important, from the mailroom to whatever role in the organization. Every role contributes to an organization. But not every role will get you to the C-suite of an organization. And so I think it's important to make sure that women and minority are given the opportunity to be on the revenue side of the business. Oftentimes we get encouraged to say, hey, why don't you, do HR or legal, all important, but none of them will lead you to running the business. And so one of the pieces of advice I got very early in my career was to stay on the revenue side of the business. And so for me, I'm very focused that I'm pushing people to stay on that side of the business. I think that's going to give them the exposure that they need and the access, the opportunity. And I'm encouraging those when I meet them to make sure that they give people the opportunity to do that. People often ask me the question, and I scoff at this question. It's like, well, what do women and minorities need in order to be successful? We need the same thing that y'all need, right? which is access to opportunity, and then when we get there, is the support to be successful. Rest assured that Debbie Cafaro, Jamie Dimon, you name them, they had mentors and the sponsors, and they had access to opportunity. That's not new. It's not special. We don't need anything that's sort of specially crafted. What we need is the opportunity. And so for me, what I'm focused on is making sure that we see that the hospitality industry is a great place to have a career, not a job, but a career, and that people think about it more broadly than just ownership. Think about the management side of the equation, think about the brand side of the equation, think about the fact that there are 3 and 4 avenues to do that, and to be successful. And we should be putting ourselves in a space where we can sort of see the chain kind of move up. So I'm very focused on making sure that we have that. Within our hotels, I get a report quarterly on the number of GMs that are people of color. When I'm sitting in a staffing, human capital staffing meeting, it's sort of like the play Hamilton, right? You got to be in the room where decisions are made. When I'm in the room and people are presenting what's happening in the pipeline, I'm very focused on what are they saying about the minority candidates? How are they giving them the opportunity? Blah, 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 blah. But guess what? If I'm not in the room, that's not happening, right? And so we have to make sure that we're making it into the room where those things are being said and done along the way. And so for me, Andy, it's great, to be, the first, but I'm in the return part of my career and making sure that I'm opening doors and giving avenue. I have, people that I mentor who are not in my organization. When I'm speaking to their boss's boss, I'm asking about that person. Hey, what about so-and-so, and what about such and such? Or when I'm, have the opportunity to dole out business, whether it's my accounting firm, my legal firm, or whatever, rest assured, I'm saying, hey, where are the people of color? Where are the women? And people who work for me will know I do not hold punches, and I'm very comfortable being very direct, in terms of doing that. We have to be doing that in all aspects of our business in terms of doing that. I think we're trying to do it on the ownership side too, which is harder because there's an equity component to it. But I think throughout every aspect of what I do, I'm trying to make sure that we're represented. But I think there's a smart way to do it. I'm not really into wearing it on my shoulder or my badge. I had somebody most recently say to me, and I just thought it was ridiculous, but I had somebody say to me, he's like, hey, there's a lot of people who sort of don't see the things that I do, and so they assume that I'm not doing anything. And the reality of it is I do the things I do to help people because it's the right thing to do, not because I'm looking for a pat on my shoulder or back on my, high five, along the way. So I get more stuff done because I'm doing it under the radar than when I'm trying to sort of do it above the screen. And I know some people don't appreciate and understand that, but it's really necessary sometimes to sort of be behind the scenes in doing that. If you sort of think about it from the way I've always sort of thought about it, is like the world needed Malcolm X and they needed Martin Luther King, right? Because Martin Luther King had a great premise and thesis in his approach. It was peaceful, but the world needed to know that if you didn't yield to Martin Luther King, you were going to deal with Malcolm X, right? And I only say that to say that we need people in every aspect. We need those people who are going to challenge the status quo, but we also need people who are winning against the status quo to demonstrate that we can win despite the obstacles that are sometimes put in our way. My way of doing that, is in a way that I can get 5 people through the door, not just banging on the door for one. And so I appreciate the trailblazing, but at the end of the day, it's about helping people and giving back and paying forward the things that were paid for me.
You mentioned a great industry. Partners like Wyndham, Hilton, Marriott, Choice. How important is it to have the right partners? You have multiple brands, 97 hotels, you said?
Yeah.
Across many brands, but all in the select service market. How important it is to have a great partner on that side, whether it's any of the major brands. And of course, some of these brands have so many sub-brands.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to keep up. But is that important? Or why can I build an Andy hotel and have professional wrestling and a spa? What else I can put there that probably won't make any money?
Yeah.
So Paul won't let me do that. Paul can't. No, that doesn't work. But how important is having the right brand or having the brand partners that feel the same way like you do? I want to give an opportunity to somebody. I want to do the right thing. And I want to make sure that African Americans and people of color have an opportunity to do something good in this industry. Is that
Yeah, I think that it's always important to have the right partners. Always important to have the right partners, people who have similar values as you, people who are willing to be scrappy. But I think you gotta figure out how to sort of think about it, right? There's, the reality is that the avenues, so the formula for success is out there, right? There was a point in time where there weren't a lot of people in real estate. Then all of a sudden, people realized that real estate was hot, and everybody sort of jumped in. And so everybody's still trying to come in through the front door, the back door, the chimney. Sometimes you have to sort of go to a space and place where you think that there aren't that many people and figure out how to do that. And what do I mean by that? It's very easy to suggest that you're going to go to the bigger brands on that. But I would encourage you to sort of think about, at the end of the day, this is about making money. I don't care what, which brand's I have, right? It's about like making money. And so whether that is off of brand XYZ or brand 1, 2, 3, it doesn't matter. Like, who is going to give me the opportunity to create value and create wealth for my family? And so I say that to say that you want to partner with people who are good partners, but people who are going to be scrappy. When we started RLJ, I shouldn't say when Tom started RLJ, Wells Fargo didn't even have a hospitality platform. They built that platform off of RLJ, and now it's been prolific, relative to what they're doing in the hospitality space. They had real estate, they had money, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to suggest Wells Fargo wasn't big, but they didn't necessarily have, what they are today. And so I say that when you're looking for, capital, when you're looking for certain things, find that regional bank, find that, that local bank that's looking to grow and it's going to be scrappy. Find that lawyer who's willing to work hard and be scrappy, and find the brands who are going to be scrappy with you and give you opportunities they may not have. Sometimes we get struck by the big and the shiny pin when the guy over here is the real guy who's going to help you create wealth and value, and you have to sort of think about it. And if you look at other communities, that's how they've done it. That's how they done it. They started small and then kind of branched out big. And so I think that we just have to calibrate, collectively in terms of where that avenue looks like. And I recognize that what I'm saying is a lot easier said than done, because there's a lot of people in this room who are sort of trying to do it. And so I don't want to kind of stand up here as if, I've got this formula. But it's just sort of think through who those partners are and who's going to be scrappy and grow with you. Along the way, and don't get caught up in the shiny penny off to the side. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather have 50% of something that's going to give me a bigger equity outcome than a tiny bit of something that's not going to give me that. It's about the IRR, right? It's about the cash flow. Who's going to be able to allow me to yield, on whatever my investment is at, and can I do multiple of those investments? And so I kind of think about it, from a standpoint, yes, you need partners, but we were always focused when we started RLJ was finding that scrappy person, not the big shops.
So Leslie, tomorrow, today's Wednesday, Thursday, you have earnings calls when?
Next week we have board meeting on Friday.
Board meeting on Friday. So you're busy.
I am.
But yet you took the time to come down and spend some time with us. And for me, it's important that people in the room see other successful African Americans and what they're doing. How do we grow NABHOOD? How do we get, and why did you decide to come when you're so doggone busy? You're busy. You're busier than Paul Cash,
Yeah, I don't know that I have the business plan to how to grow NABHOOD. I think that...
Well, grow African Americans in the business.
Right.
Because that's our committed goal from we started from day one with no black-owned branded hotels. Remember, prior to integration, you had safe houses. But what should we be looking at individually and collectively in terms of equity and partnering to get a deal? Because remember, it was Tom Baltimore, Bob Johnson, Sheila Johnson, and a guy named Steve Bollenbach. At that time, the president of Hilton. I think Tom was at Hilton then. And the folks at Hilton probably saw something that created where we are today, where you are sitting. How do we continue that push?
Yeah, I don't know that that's a fair comparison, right? Andy, that's like lightning in a bottle. A lot of these things sometimes in life don't happen happenstance, right? People look at Bill Gates and they say, "Wow, he's really great, successful." Yeah, but his mother was on the board of XYZ that gave him the opportunity, right? And so I say that to say that there's no magic bullet, Andy, to being able to solve and crack this nut. I think we have to continue to figure out ways to get access to capital. In the most simplest terms, access to capital is the linchpin that holds us back. Everybody in this room is smart, right? They can do the math. They realize that there's money to be made in hospitality. They can find deals. But when you find the deal, you got to be able to stroke the check, right? And you have to have the bank that's going to give you the loan. This is a tough market to get loans in, but that's cyclical, not secular. So, I think that really what we need is for different vehicles that will allow people to tap into to getting the equity check so they can get some of their deals done and off the ground. Look, it's no secret that many of us don't have that rich uncle, who can write that check. But we still have to kind of figure out a way to create pools of capital in which people of color can tap into to be able to to do that. And I don't have a magic bullet for that, Andy, but I think it's about access to capital is the missing linchpin from an ownership perspective. I know that there are lots of conversations with many of the brand companies, and they try to help from a standpoint of providing key money and different incentives. But at the end of the day, a multi-million-dollar check is a multi-million-dollar check that has to be written. And so whether it's pooling capital together, whether it's sort of finding your version of Bob Johnson, all of those things are things that we don't readily have accessible. It's not an excuse, it's just a fact. And we have to figure out how to supplement that. And it's the missing linchpin for I think, for the NABHOOD members, I think.
But when you look at it, you see tremendous growth opportunity, period.
I think that hospitality is still a great place to invest, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. But I think we've got to figure out a formula that allows us to get access to capital, so that we can play in the game.
So I'll just stay on time. We have 4 more minutes to go. The counter's a little bit wrong, but
yeah.
I promised Leslie when she came in, I promised her assistant to get out on the time because she has a flight shortly after. We really appreciate you being here. And to me personally, and to the organization, it shows the sort of commitment and type of people that we associate with that are very successful. In leaving, Leslie, what would you say that if you had a crystal ball, and I know you have a crystal ball tomorrow to tell us what's going to happen in industry. We have elections coming up, doesn't matter which part of the political divide you're on, but what would you say that we should be prepared for, whether we have Trump or Kamala, whether we have interest rates, higher interest costs, no cuts? What would you say to this group that would leave them and give them sort of comfort that it's going to be okay, if it's going to be okay? I have a passport. If Trump comes in, I just may move, but what can I say? Yeah. I'm a Republican. I just don't support Trump, that's all. No big deal.
Yeah, look. I don't want to opine on I don't want to opine on Trump, but I am super proud that the fact that of Kamala and what she has the potential to be able to do for a number of reasons, not the least of which is she's a Howard University grad. Yeah. But we have to do everything we can to win, because I think that our culture depends on it. But I think that in every situation we find ourselves in, we have to look through all the chaos and see where you think the opportunity is going to be. Chaos creates, opportunity. And what we spend a lot of time at, our organization is looking past that chaos and saying, okay, if interest rates are higher, where are there going to be buying opportunities? If X is going to happen, where are there going to be buying opportunities? How do we think about what our investment thesis should be, or how it should shift, and how we should sort of think about our business model? And so I would encourage you to, for lack of a better word, embrace the chaos, but look through it and see where the opportunity is in. The most money has been made when people are running one way and you run the opposite way, right? When they zig, you zag. What I will tell you, after every single downturn or either whatever crisis it may have been, there's only one thing that I ever wish, and I wish that I had bought more, right? Wish we had bought more after the dot-com bubble, more after 9/11, more after the financial crisis. It's just, you always wish that you had bought more. And so, to the extent that you have the opportunity, the capital, and the courage, this is an investment opportunity. And you have to sort of see what that is and don't lose sight of that, is what I would say.
Leslie, this was great. Thank you so much for being here, taking the time with your schedule. Please join me and give her a hand. Thank you very much.
All right, are you going to skip that for me?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, yeah. 501, not a 5 on the dot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Leslie Hale, President and CEO of RLJ Lodging Trust. This is the 6th Annual Thomas J. Baltimore Jr. Distinguished Speaker Series, which is a NABHOOD endowed session.
What you say? Oh, I'm blinking? Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean.
Thank
Okay.
you. Get your phone? No.
Yeah, I got it. All right, Andy. I'm gonna solve the world, man. Solve the world.
Solve the world problem.
You did.
Proud.
Yeah,
Oh my
thank-
gosh. Oh my gosh.
8
how
a.m.
wonderful.
Counting.
As you continue to network, please enjoy our networking break sponsored by PepsiCo. While here at the 28th Annual NABHOOD, you want to make sure that you enjoy the corporate suites. Want to make a connection, meet, or learn about new opportunities? Meet with representatives in corporate suites and learn about investment and franchise opportunities. We have Marriott International in Biscayne Island, Hilton in San Marco Island, Wyndham Hotel and Resorts in Sunset Island, U.S. Virgin Islands in Palm Island, the Bahamas in Bal Harbour Island. You can also visit Black Meetings and Tourism Magazine in Hibiscus Island. Nothing is better than giving back. If you would like to receive Sheila Johnson's autographed book, please sign up for the NABHOOD Scholarship Breakfast or donate to the NABHOOD Scholarship Fund at an increment of $100 or more. You can do so by scanning the QR code in the lobby or visiting the registration desk.